Greetings, dear viewers. I'm Quill Quickcard, and welcome to the finale of Radical Dreamers, where we are going to head toward the main hall, and we are going to get ourselves a frozen flame. We continued onward, past where the stairs and the side passage emerged into the main corridor. We found ourselves in front of some ornate double doors. This was the main hall of the manor. Let's go inside. Kid pushed open the heavy door as quietly as she could and peered inside. Looks like the coast is clear. We stepped into the main hall. Dozens of candles provided a dim, flickering light, sending the corners of the room dancing in and out of shadow. The great hall was filled with a heavy silence. A silence unbroken save for the ticking of a large clock that slowly counted the passage of time, as if waiting for something. Several portraits glared down at us with cold eyes. We moved through the feeble glow of the candles. "That candlestick from the left," whispered Kid. 1, 2, 3... There! She reached out toward it. I held my breath as I watched. "Say your prayers, Lynx. We're coming for you." Kid turned the candlestick. The room trembled with a sudden rhythmic rumbling sound, as if a massive gear was turning. "What's that?" For a moment I felt a strange sensation, as if I was floating. Do you feel that?" I started to stagger. "The entire room seems to be moving downward," came the reply from Majel. I couldn't quite believe it, but I also couldn't deny the feeling of downward motion. The main hall was sinking into the earth. And then, another rumble. The room's descent rapidly accelerated. A cold sweat dripped from my back, my heart filled with a mixture of fear and anticipation. What was waiting for us down there? The frozen flame, our prize at the end of this little adventure. But what was it really? Would it live up to our expectations? I tightened my fists, which were slick with sweat. What were Kid and Majel thinking? The room remained veiled in silence. As if in response to my thoughts, a quiet voice came from next to me. "Sometimes I..." It was Kid. I looked over to see her standing stiffly, staring forward with her hands clenched into fists. "Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a losing battle. A battle I'll never win no matter what I do." It was a side of her I'd never witnessed before. Even from this angle, I could see fear and doubt flickering across her face. I felt a tender sting in my heart. "What are you fighting? What are you fighting against?" "Good question. Fate, maybe? Life, even. Not sure I can put my finger on it exactly. It ain't Lynx. I mean, sure, I'm here to fight him, but that's different. It ain't clear-cut like that. I feel like there's another me inside me. One that's just sitting there looking out at how empty and pointless everything I do is. That's the best way I can describe it, anyhow. Listen to me. Load of bloody nonsense, eh?" She smiled ruefully. I didn't know exactly what she meant, but I felt like I knew broadly what she was getting at. She may have talked tough, but underneath it all, she felt fear and uncertainty just like the rest of us. I mean, that was no great revelation in and of itself, but hearing her say it out loud gave me a strange sense of relief. I stole another sidelong glance at her. Her expression was different, more mature somehow. "Sorry, mate, you didn't need to hear that. Not exactly me trademark brand of carefree banter, eh?" She stuck out her tongue. Normal service had been resumed. Or so it seemed for a second. "Thanks, Sedge. And you too, Mage," she said, suddenly serious again. "Couldn't have made it this far without you both. Listen, if we don't... After this, I mean, if we don't get another chance to..." "Huh?" You know what? Forget it. She closed her eyes and forced a smile. I wasn't sure how to respond. So, true to form, I just stared at her some more. Yeah, you really like staring at Kid. It's kind of weird. I could have sworn I caught a flicker of a grin across Magel's face, too. He was standing just at the edge of my field of vision, arms crossed and eyes closed. But maybe it was just my imagination. A contemplative silence descended as the hall continued its journey down into the bowels of the manor. A crash split the silence as if we'd collided with something. Screech! A loud metallic scraping filled the air. The room rocked and finally came to a halt. Looks like the end of the line. All change! The swelling grandeur of the organ suddenly filled the air. No one had so much as touched it, and yet the keys and the pedals were moving by themselves. The melody it played was both unsettling and sad. Funeral tune, is it? Way to greet your guests! Kid took a long stride forward, then turned to face me and Magel. Come on, let's go! Magel and I gently nodded our assent. Kid grinned, then turned back to the door. I'm coming for you, lads! This is the end for you! And with that, she led us from the hall. We continued down a long, dark corridor, the walls slick with condensation. The air was thick and heavy, as though ripe with the stench of death. Were we really getting close to Lynx's hidden vault at last? And was there any turning back now? For any of us? There was something strange about Kid that night. Magel didn't seem to be his usual self either. To begin with, it was vanishingly rare for him to speak so much, let alone to show any kind of emotion. What happened to make them change like that? Unable to take the silence anymore, I decided to speak. I had to ask the question that had been on my mind all this time. You know... Why do you want the frozen flame so badly? Hey kid, why do you want the frozen flame so badly? All I got in reply was the cold echo of her footfalls. I should have known. She didn't like to talk about her reasons for doing things. After all, it was a topic that was likely to lead to discussion of her past. But then she spoke, though it was almost a whisper. I'm doing it for Sis. Before she died, she told me to find the frozen flame and bury it. Bury it where? Her old mate's grave. Kid looked at her feet as she walked. She wasn't me real sister, but she was as good as family to me. When she took me in, I was bloody helpless. Couldn't remember a thing, and I was barely enough to survive on my own. She didn't go into too much detail about who her mate was. Best I can remember is I needed to find the grave of a girl who married another mate of hers and died not long after. She said that's where the frozen flame should be laid to rest, or something like that. To be honest, I wasn't paying much attention at the time. It's not like I could have known what was about to happen. When she disappeared and I realised she wasn't coming back though, I swore I'd make good on what she asked me to do. I'd nab the frozen flame from that right bastard Lynx and get me revenge. Kid's eyes almost seemed to glow with heat in the cold night air. I'll make him pay for everything he's done, no matter what it takes, even if it kills me. And then she fell silent. Sorry, kid, I didn't mean to bring up something so painful. There was a pause before she replied. Nah, you're all right. I should have said something sooner, before I roped you into this. Sorry. Silence reigned supreme as I fumbled around to try and find something to say in reply. But all that filled the darkness of the corridor was the sound of yet more footsteps. Suddenly Majel stopped in his tracks. Wait! Huh? Kid turned around, puzzled. Just then a powerful light surged across the floor, and a ring-shaped sigil appeared. Damn it! A blood circle. Kid and Majel were at least quick enough to try and jump clear, but they weren't quick enough. The three of us were trapped in a circle of blinding light. Uh-oh. Okay, slight problem. The sigil rotated left and right, with us at the center, cutting off all escape routes. Gah! We're trapped! A wall of heat and wind blew up around us, and swirling lines and spirals of light assailed us wherever we turned. Don't let the light mesmerize you. Cover your eyes, shouted Majel, raising a hand over his mask. Turn with the light, not against it. There has to be a way out. Well, the Griffin did tell us, right thrice, left twice, right twice. What? I barely even understand what's going on. Kid's elbow brushed against the wall of light surrounding us, sending sparks flying. Be careful. Merely to touch it is more than enough to harm you. Stay well back. I slowly turned my body to follow the movements of the ring of light, looking for a gap to escape through. I turned right 3 times. Yes. 3 steps to the right. There, I see it. That's our way through. I found a gap in the wall of light and carefully walked through it. Kid, Majel, this way! We managed to get through the barrier unscathed. But we weren't out of the woods yet. There was still another wall of light swirling with a great wind in front of us. Alright, we're going 2 left. Left twice. 2 steps to the left. There, I see it! That's our way through! Alright, we made it through the second layer. We managed to get through the barrier unscathed. But we weren't out of the woods left. There was still another wall of light. Alright, and now right twice. I turned right twice. 2 steps to the right. There, I see it! We got it. Kid, Majel, this way! We made it. Suddenly, my body felt light, and I staggered 2 or 3 steps forward. We were back at the deserted passageway we'd been walking down before the blood circle had appeared. The sigil had vanished from the floor, and everything was silent, as if nothing had ever been amiss. And then I looked up. Looks like we finally made it, boys. Kid strolled up to the door with a wicked grin on her face. The true frozen flame awaits. Majel's eyes gave a glint from behind his mask, like glass catching moonlight in the darkness of night. Let's go! Kid reached for the handle. So this is the place, huh? Kid narrowed her eyes, straining to see our surroundings in the darkness. A vast, pitch-black expanse surrounded us whichever way we looked. It was as if we'd entered an impossibly vast cave. We were in a place forgotten by time, unknown to the world, hidden deep within the bowels of night. A gentle crimson light hovered in the darkness. The frozen flame. All right, now it's ours. The light of the flame ebbed and waned gently, as if responding to Kid's voice. What the heck is this place? There's mountains of bloody rubble everywhere. Majel took a step further into the room, and said in a whisper that was almost a groan, No, it can't be. But it is. The ruins of the lost kingdom of mages. The voice drifted down through the darkness from above. Kid looked up in shock. Lights! I'll kick your flea-bitten ass so hard you'll kiss the moon! Kid pulled her knife from her belt and threw it as hard as she could. It fell to the floor with a clang, as if knocked out of the air by some unseen hand. Still am same impetuous child, I see. That's no way to greet an old friend. Smarmy bastard! Kid gritted through her teeth with rage. And you, Shadow Dweller, I'll have none of your tricks this time. You must think me a fool if you believe I'll fall for that again. Majel, who had been quietly slipping into the darkness that surrounded us, stopped dead in his tracks. So this was the infamous Lynx. The lord of this deadly manor. The man who had murdered the closest thing Kid had to family, who had assassinated General Viper and eradicated the order of the Acacia Dragoons. A pleasure as always, my dear Kid. And I must say you followed the trail of breadcrumbs I laid for you admirably closely, my greedy little sneak thief. What a bloody... She stepped forward, bristling. Lynx narrowed his eyes as his lips twisted into a snarl. You know what I want, Kid. Give me the stone you carry. The stone? Did Kid have some kind of jewel I didn't know about? Peh! Dunno what you're on about, mate. She just about managed to recover her composure, narrowing her eyes scornfully at her old foe. Spare me the act, child. I know that you have it. I know she gave it to you. Hand over the time egg. Now! The... what? Whatever it was, I'd never heard of it. You're dreaming if you think I'll give it to the likes of you, Kid shot back. It's all I have left of her. I'll never let go of it, not for anyone. Definitely not for you. I'll tell you what's gonna happen, you bastard. First I'm gonna take the frozen flame, and then I'm gonna ram it down your throat. Incorrigible young fool. I was hoping this might be a civilized exchange. Alas, it seems my words will only fall on deaf ears, and you are determined to repeat your past errors. Lynx moved his hand to the grip of the ornate golden saber that hung from his belt. Last time I showed you mercy and let you leave with your life. That was a mistake. One which I mean to correct. Surge! Third, Majel, stay back! Kid took a step forward, glaring at Lynx, her gaze unflinching. This ends here and now! You'll pay for what you've done! You'll pay for what you did to Luca! With a scream, Kid leapt into the air like a bird taking flight. Her push lashed out a scything kick, aimed right at the side of Lynx's head. But there was no contact. Where Lynx had been mere moments before, there was now only an empty space. Kid landed and immediately launched herself back into the air, putting the full force of her momentum into another kick. This time Lynx leaned back, letting Kid's foot swing past only a hair's breadth from his nose. And then it was Lynx's turn. He lashed out with his saber, carving an arc through the air in front of him. Kid was ready for him, however, and had already jumped back to a safe distance. The two glared at each other from mere footsteps apart. At least you had the decency to prepare a little better than last time, Lynx purred. A red line appeared on Kid's cheek, slowly coalescing into a drop of blood. Kid! In a flash, she launched herself into yet another attack. Lynx dodged to the side, then made to strike her with the hilt of his saber. Kid moved awkwardly to avoid the attack, losing her footing. And then Lynx was on her like a bird of prey before she could fully recover. There was a gasp and a cough as Lynx drove his knee into the pit of her stomach. Kid collapsed. A steady stream of blood dripped from her lips. Will that be all, girl? Lynx gave Kid a merciless kick to the side, sending her flying. She landed on a pile of rubble, her body rolling until she hit a large stone pillar, and there she lay, lifelessly still. Kid! Kid! I screamed her name as I charged toward Lynx, but Majel was there already. He flew through the darkness, a part of the shadows, before crashing down on Lynx like a bolt from the blue. Lynx jumped back, and countless threads of light flew from his fingertips toward Majel. With a droning hum, the threads of light surrounded Majel, crossing one another. They spread forth to form a lattice of life that gave off a blinding glare and trapped Majel where he stood. what is this? Major staggered and groaned, attempting to shield his eyes with his hands. It's a simple enough spell, my shadowy friend, for those inclined to learn it, and one which, sadly for you, leaves no darkness in which to hide. Lynx leered at Major with a venomous grin. You've been quite the thorn in my side. I'll let you live long enough to regret it. Major struggled and groaned. I had to do something. Kid and Major needed me, but what was I going to do? Let's make sure... Oh god, I challenge Lynx. Okay, that's probably a bad idea. Lynx had started making his way over toward Kid while I was paralyzed with indecision. What's the matter, Kid? You were so bold only a moment ago. Aren't you going to keep me entertained? Lynx looked down his nose at Kid's broken body. Now, do you want to give me the time egg? We can still be civilized about this. I am, of course, a gentleman, and it pains me to have to seize a fair maiden's valuables by force, even if the fair maiden in question is in fact a filthy street rat. He pressed his foot into Kid's head. I could hear her voice, faint and breathless. It's Lucas Stone, not yours. I'll never give it to anyone, and no way will I give it to the likes of you. I couldn't let him get any closer to her, but what was I going to do? Just run! Do something! Kid! I ran over to where she lay. She was flat out, still collapsed where she had fallen, and blood still ran from her mouth. Kid! Kid, say something! I crouched down next to her, glancing at her face in a panic. She groaned, and then she began to stir, her face twisted with pain. Sid! It's okay, Kid. I'm here. How touching. Although I would be more concerned about my own well-being if I were you. The voice came from behind me. It felt as if ice water had been poured down my neck. I jumped to my feet and turned around. Lynx was looking down at me with a cold, emotionless stare. Any friend of Kid's is certainly no friend of mine. Forgive me, but I cannot permit you to leave this place alive. Before I realized it, his hand had shot out toward me. His claw-like fingers clamped around my throat. I couldn't breathe. Tightening his grip, Lynx lifted me bodily until my feet were dangling in the air. I could feel his talons mercilessly digging deeper and deeper into my neck. Panic filled my mind. Look, Kid. See your friend. See him suffer. This is your doing. This is your hand around his neck. Kid's breathing was ragged, and blood still dripped from her lips. Opening an eye, she groggily raised her head. But she couldn't get up. She didn't have the strength. Sid! Give me the time egg. Do you even know what it is? I suspect not. Think of it as a concentrated pocket of space. With the frozen flame and the time egg in hand, one can bend the fabric of time and space and rewrite the past. There are errors that I mean to correct, mistakes in the past that must be set right. Lynx's narrow, emotionless eyes returned to my face. How long before he perishes, I wonder? I struggled to breathe, but could only make choking sounds. Kid screamed my name. Decide! Will you watch the boy die or relent? Does his life mean nothing to you? I can't! She balled her hands into fists and dropped her gaze. My vision started to fade. And then I heard her voice as she struggled to speak through the pain. I'm sorry, Sid, but I swore I'd sacrifice anything to stop Lynx. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. It was all I could do to force the words out past Lynx's icy grip. I was starting to black out. Was this really how it was going to end? For crying out loud, you win! Here, have your damn rook! Lynx's grip on my throat loosened. Groaning with pain, Kid reached a shaky hand into her shirt. I knew you would come around in the end. Lynx threw my body to the ground, then walked over toward her. Just shut up and take it, you bastard! It's all you deserve. With all the strength she could still muster, Kid lashed out at Lynx with her right hand. Gah! He leapt back in a desperate attempt to evade the blow, but it was too late. Kid's nails, sharp as cat's claws, raked mercilessly into his face. Lynx roared with pain. He staggered, clutching his left eye. Blood oozed through the gaps in his fingers. You wretched little shit of a girl! Lynx stood awkwardly, still clutching at the wound on his face. The fingers of his free hand arched into furious talons as he walked back toward Kid, who still lay on the ground. I will kill you all! He kicked her hard, concentrating all his wrath and venom into the blow. Kid gasped as all the wind was knocked out of her, yet more blood ran from her mouth as her body rolled across the floor. Kid! I yelled hoarsely, clutching my burning throat with one hand. Lynx turned his head slowly to look at me, one eye fixing on me coldly as it came into view. He took a step toward me. Yes, perhaps it would be better to start with you. My dear Kid, rest assured that your friend's death will be a most elaborate and painful one. You will truly know what it means to suffer, boy. I will put you through the same suffering as I did that Luca woman. Kid's body stirred with shock and horror. Her eyes slowly opened, fixing on Lynx. They were wild eyes, stained with the blood that poured from her brow. Gritting her teeth, she staggered to her feet. Lynx! Lynx! And then an explosion of light burst forth from the frozen flame. Another light began to form from somewhere near Kid's chest, resonating with the light from the frozen flame. The twin lights entwined, twirling slowly upward, and as it rose, the golden spiral spread. No, this can't be! Lynx stood motionless, transfixed by the spectacle. Was this the Time Egg's power? Kid screamed as a raging blaze of light engulfed her. I'll never let you do it again! I'll never let you steal from me again! Bathed in the glow, her body shook. Blood-red tears dripped from her eyes as they took on a distant look. And then she collapsed to the ground, as if all the life had gone out of her. I heard a voice. It was quiet and still, like the evening. It has come to pass. Kid is retracing her lost memories back through time, back to the Lost Kingdom. It was through her power that the kingdom fell, that it was swallowed in the all-encompassing vortex of time. In her grief, she wished to disappear. Her past, her future, she wanted it all to sink into the void, to be lost in the seething whirl of time. She despised what she had done. She closed herself off from all she saw and heard, and cursed her very existence. But the stone wished for her to live. The hands of her clock were rewound, her memories unraveled. The stone gave her a chance to begin again. The stone had both the power and the will to bring all this about. Sinking through the sea of time, she drifted here, a mere babe, her memories a blank slate. The time egg shattered, its fragments raining down on the world, becoming shards of sorrow and anguish. The world around us drifted into pieces. It swallowed us, engulfed us. We were consumed, locked into the void. And then, a girl's scream echoed in the darkness. That voice. Was that Kid? It sounded just like... No. This is all wrong. The black vortex, it surrounds us. No, stop! Where am I? Well, I don't know, but there's planets in the sky, land in the sky, and dinosaurs in the sky. So, wherever we are, it's a bit weird. I have lost everything, and now I can but wander. The world drifts, and time is a blur. There is only an endless, unknowable sea. This is where time begins and ends. This is where all life finds peace. I see myself as a baby crying next to my mother, an exhausted yet proud look on her face. I see myself aged and wizened, waiting to succumb to death's embrace with a smile. I see countless incarnations of myself, walking time's intricate corridors as ghosts. This is a place where countless worlds overlap and infinite dreams play out. If only I could rest here for eternity. If only I could free myself of all my burdens and sleep here in this sea of dreams. But I hear it calling me. I hear the song. Kid! Kid, please! Can you hear me? Kid! Kid, say something! Kid, you've got to stay with me! Who's that? Who's calling me? Sedge? Where am I? Kid, you're awake? I heard a song. It was beautiful. It was that song that Luca loved. Kid closed her eyes, and her face glowed with a warm smile. I'll never forget that song. Makes me want to cry whenever I'll hear it. I'm just glad you're back. It felt like I was losing you. Like you were going somewhere far, far away. Before I knew it, I was humming the song for you. I don't know if I ever mentioned it, but I wrote it when I first started out as a musician. I knew you liked it, so I... Kid gave an initial nod. It was you. You were the one who called me back. It was you calling me name. Thanks, Serge. It's okay. It's okay now. I'm back. Suddenly she gasped with pain. Lynx's saber had plunged deep into her right shoulder. And towering over us was Lynx himself. Okay, yeah, maybe we should deal with that. I told you, Kid. I told you I would kill you. She had no strength left to fight. What was I going to do? Protect Kid! I threw myself over Kid's inert form. I had to protect her. Ha! You rushed needlessly to your grave, boy. Lynx glared coldly at me with his remaining eye. Alas, your time has come! He raised his saber high, preparing to strike. Enough! Stunned, we looked toward the intruder. You! There stood an old crone, her wizened features obscured by a heavy hood. How had she made it all the way down here? Lady Vera. And what have we done to bring poor Magister General Wunning, I wonder, he growled. It's been far too long, Lord Lynx. A pity that I seem not to have caught you at your best. The crone met Lynx's mad stare head on. I would take your frozen flame. After all, it seems you two have been quite unable to decide which of you should have it. She raised a hand, and armed soldiers poured into the room. Majel lifted Kid to her feet. This seems like a good time to leave. Lynx snarled. You'll regret this, witch! He kicked off from the floor, and his body rose into the air. Then he turned his venomous glare on us. And you, Kid, you'll pay for this with your life soon enough. You will never be safe from me. With that, he disappeared like a puff of smoke. The crone lingered for a moment, her eyes resting on us. Kid, if you wish to try and steal the frozen flame again, you're welcome to try any time you please. We'll be waiting. But you'll have to get out of here alive first. The soldiers drew their weapons and fell upon us. Darkness, heed my call. With Kid slumped against him, Majel spread his arms and drew a sigil in the air. Hurry, Surge! This way! I grabbed onto him, and we plunged into blackness. Ooh. Thanks to Majel's magic, we managed to escape the manor alive. But the lights of torches dotted the forest, and we could hear soldiers calling to one another. We stopped briefly in the darkness of the woods, and Kid leaned heavily on a tree, desperately trying to quiet her ragged breathing. It was a terrible wound she'd suffered, and it seemed to be taking its toll. Are you okay, Kid? Yeah, don't worry about me, mate. We're surrounded. We're surrounded. It won't be long before they find us, said Majel, his eyes cautiously scanning the area. Kid raised her head to look at me. It's me and Majel they want. Get out of here, Serge. It's us they want, not you. What are you saying? I'm not leaving you here. Look at you. You can barely stand. It's nothing I can't handle. Besides, I got Majel with me. If they catch you with us, they won't go easy on you. But I remembered everything. I remembered another me. Me from long time ago. Slowly, Kid averted her gaze, looking up at the night sky. I have to go. The stars reflected in her eyes, and suddenly, she looked like nothing more than an ordinary young girl with a sad, distant expression on her face. Kid, don't worry, Serge. I'm okay. We'll meet again. Kid smiled. We'll meet again. Somewhere. Someday. Sometime. Promise. Her eyes closed gently. I didn't even manage to nick the frozen flame in the end. I lost the time egg too. The only thing I had left of Lucas. But it's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. There's something inside me that shines brighter than any stupid jewel. The most important thing in the world. She opened her eyes again and fixed them on me. I could have lost myself in their depths forever. No one can take it from me. Not for as long as I live. There was nothing else in the world I wanted but this. I doubted I'd ever want anything again. I only wanted this moment. All the clocks in the world could have stopped right then and there for all I cared. And that was exactly what I wished for as I gazed at her. Goodbye, Sedge. And thanks. She looked down, then turned away and disappeared into the darkness of the night. Would I ever see her again? Kid! Don't follow me, Serge. Please. Just don't. I strained to try and catch a glimpse of her as the last traces of her shadow vanished toward a place I might never reach again. No, kid! I leapt to my feet, meaning to chase after her, but a shadow soon blocked my path. Majel! Without saying a word, he slowly shook his head. Behind the mask, I saw sadness in his eyes. Then the shadow withdrew and melted into the darkness. Majel! Kid! Wait, don't leave me! I screamed into the night, but there was no reply. The black silence swallowed my cries. Kid! Kid! And so ends another tale. Perhaps one day I'll see Kid, Majel, and Riddell again. One day. Somewhere at another time in another world. Perhaps none of us will even realize it. But that's a story for another day. For now I must put down my pen. I closed my grandfather's diary. And then from downstairs I heard my mother calling. Did you hear me? Your friend's here. Nimble footsteps charged up the stairs. The door flew open. In tumbled a young girl. A girl who seemed somehow familiar. Hey, Serge. It's a beautiful day for adventuring. I found a rundown old manor off in the woods to the north. You want to go exploring? Come on, put the book down and let's get out of here. And that was Radical Dreamers. Or at least the main ending to Radical Dreamers. This game has multiple endings. However, they go off onto some wildly different tangents that firmly place them into timelines that do not relate to anything else Chrono related that we know of. This is not the most well-known of games. Not the most well-loved. And as a sequel to Chrono Trigger, it's obviously a very strange way of doing it. And I would say that it really effectively serves less as a sequel to Chrono Trigger than it does as kind of an unusual prologue for Chrono Cross. It seems to take place in a timeline where Chrono was not brought back, and the Time Egg remained with Luca and eventually passed to Kid. And honestly, all the timeline stuff gets a bit wonky at this point. But what's important is that it seems that Kid is, in some way, a reincarnation or an echo or some kind of manifestation of Shala. Echoing forward from the distant past. And it seems that Magus has been continuing to watch over her, protect her, do what he can. But it's not quite clear, just from Radical Dreamers, where all of this goes, or where they intended to take the story when they made this game, since there was clearly room for more. This would have been 1996, so Chrono Cross would have already been in planning or development at the time. Chrono Trigger was still fresh in people's minds as the absolute masterpiece that it was. And this just fills a strange space between Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross without being really clearly in line with either of them. It's parallel without intersecting, if that makes sense. And I think that just makes it a really fascinating little game. And so we have finished Radical Dreamers and gotten the ending Le Trésor Interdit, which means the Forbidden Treasure, the first of the game's 7 endings. This journey has come to a close, but up ahead is Chrono Cross, the true and thorough sequel to Chrono Trigger. And I will see you all there on the next one.